Hello everyone. Welcome to the Test Automation webinar hosted by Gurzu. I'm Asmita, your host for this event, and we have two incredible speakers joining us to share their experiences and expertise with us. Talking about the organizer of this event, Gurzu is a software development company based in the USA and Nepal. Since 2014, we have helped bring innovative ideas of our clients into life with our extraordinary services. We help entrepreneurs with web development, mobile development, product design, and of course, test automation. Let me tell you that our webinars are a part of our mission to share our knowledge to the technical community, and the turnover at this event is really exciting. We've been working since last month to make this webinar happen, and I'm so happy to see all of you here. And I sincerely hope that each one of you has something to take away from today's session. So, I will like to quickly get into the main program. But before that, let me request you, in order to make sure the sessions run smoothly, please mute your microphone and turn off your cameras. And if you have any questions to the speaker or any thoughts or opinions related to the topic, please feel free to write them in the chat section. Also, if you are watching it live, you can use the comment sections. Our speakers will answer them after their presentation. Okay, so let me welcome our first speaker, Sony Tuladhar. Sony has been working as a QA engineer at Gurzu for about 2.5 years, and her contributions have been pivotal to our success here at Gurzu. Today, she is going to talk about the secret to successful test automations that any company can follow. Sony, it's an honor to have you here today. You can begin with the screen sharing.
Thank you, Asmita. Nice to be here today. So I will share my screen first. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
So hello everyone. I'm Sony Tuladhar and I'm a senior QA engineer at Gurzu. So today I'm here to share the secret to successful test automation that any company can follow. So before going on to the topic, so I have a quick question for you. What do you think test automation is? So you can drop your answer in chat box. So if we need to explain what test automation is, it is the use of software tools and script to automatically execute test cases and compare actual result with the expected result. So the another quick question is, what is the proper strategy? So do we need a proper strategy, or do we need a proper planning or brainstorming to achieve test automation? What do you think so, guys? So you can drop your answer in chat box. So let's move on to, if I want to highlight the benefit of automation testing, obviously. So highlighting the benefit of automation testing, automation offer us a way to execute an extensive number of test cases rapidly. As you know that it will help us to freeing up our QA team to focus on more exploratory and critical testing tasks, obviously. So it just not only boosted our efficiency, but also allowed us to catch defects early in the development process. So it saved us our valuable time and resources. So what do you think delivering high quality product is luxury or necessity? What do you think? So as we know that in today's fast-paced software industry, delivering high-quality product to the market quickly is no longer luxury. It's a necessity. So at Gurzu, we prepare a proper process and procedure for test automation. First and following each phase, we start to achieve complete test automation for the project. So for instance, also automation testing played crucial role in our recent project. So the project used computer vision technology and it empowered to real facial authentication access with different solutions like ticketing, access control, and as well as transactions. So they actually approached us to implement end-to-end automation testing because they were facing issues during regression testing. As you know that as the project evolved and new features were added, manual regression testing became time-consuming, error-prone, and research-intensive, obviously. So as well as we can relate that if we have to repeat the same task or same thing over and over again, it feels hectic. So that is why our client recognized the need for automation testing, for more uh, efficient testing to keep up with the rapid development cycle and ensure product meet the highest quality standards. So basically, we followed each step. I will explain what we did in each step. So let's move on to the first step, which is analysis and scope of automation. So the first thing we did was we set up our team according to the requirement of the project. So we schedule meeting with clients to walk through the system. So as we know that before we start working, we have to understand all the requirements of the project. That is why we go through the application manually, explore the application using different scenarios. So basically, we did exploratory testing, obviously, and after that, we started to prepare test case document. And from that, we prioritize our test cases. So we have to prioritize our test cases. There will be many scenarios, like there will be test scenarios like which can be automate or which cannot be automate. So according to that, we have to prioritize the test cases. And the second step after that is selection of tools. So before we start working, we have to select a tool according to the need of requirement. As it is the web-based application, we have to choose the tool which support web-based application automation. So we decided to use Cypress because we were using Cypress. So as we are implementing automation, we started to research the tool that we are going to use. Uh, we have to stay informed about the latest features and improvements in the Cypress, obviously. So we go through their official documents, which help us to enable us deliver high quality web application with confidence. So after the selection of tool, the third step we did was evaluation of our framework. Why did we exactly select that framework? Because we select the Cypress testing framework according to its testing capabilities, its ease of setup and configuration, and according to the availability and quality of the documentation and community support. So looking over that, we decided to use Cypress testing framework. And after the evaluation of the framework, the next step we did was environment setup. So we have to select the environment where we gonna implement automation. As we know that there are many environments like development, staging, QA, production. So for that project, we decided to implement automation in QA environment. Then after that, we were planning to move on to the staging environment because we know that staging is a replica of the production environment, which we use for final testing before deploying to the production. So after the environment setup, the next step is develop test script. After we are done setting up the environment, we have to start developing our test script according to the prioritization of the test cases that we did before, that we prepared. So we use different libraries to maximize our code reusability and maintainability. So obviously, we followed best practices to ensure quality and consistency. So during implementing automation testing, we face different challenges as well. So we encounter issues with test stability, test data management, and then cross-browser compatibility. However, we work collaboratively with our team to find innovative solutions. So we also conducted code reviews so that we can manage our standard of the code. So after developing the test script, the next step we did is execute and analyze it. So we have to execute our test after developing our test script. After the test execution is completed, we analyze our test results and debug any issues or failure encountered during test execution. If any failure encountered, then we have to refine our test script as needed to improve their accuracy and reliability. So after execution and analysis, the next step is CICD integration. So to integrate CICD, we have to make sure that our Cypress test is stored in a version control repository. So for example, Git repository. So for that project, we use Bitbucket as code repository management and Git as a version control system. So to integrate CI/CD, the first thing we have to do is we have to select our tool, which tool we are going to use for CI/CD. So for that project, we use TeamCity. So TeamCity is one of the CI/CD tools, and there are many other tools as well. So for that, we started to prepare Docker files and install it is a text file where we put all the dependencies which is needed for Cypress test to run. And to integrate CI/CD, we collaborate with our DevOps team and integrate it in TeamCity. So after the integration, the last step we did is maintenance. As there is some thoughts like if we are done doing automation testing end to end, then we do not have to write or we do not have to maintain automation testing, but it is not true. We continuously updated the automation test suites as the production evolves and refine the test script to ensure they remain accurate and aligned with the product's functionality. So these are the basic steps that we involve in our automation testing process. So by following our established procedure and incorporating best practices, we can significantly enhance the overall software development process and deliver high quality product to our customer. So at last, I want to say, as we continue to adopt automation in our testing endeavors, let's stay updated with the latest trends and technologies in the testing industry. So this is it from my side. If you have any queries, please drop in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Sony, for the insightful talk. It was amazing to hear from you. Now we will quickly move forward to take questions from the audiences if there are any. So let me check it first. Uh, so there is a questions from Rosal Bati. How do you handle test flakiness?
Can you please repeat?
Okay, there is a question from Rosal Bati. How do you handle test flakiness?
Yes.
Test flakiness.
Can you drop question in chat box?
Okay, it's in the chat box. And another questions is, wait, let me drop the questions in the chat box. Okay. How do you handle test flakiness? So we will take some time. Okay, and another questions is from Ranjan. In automation testing, what would you prefer, TDD or BDD?
Sorry for the late reply. So, can I answer for the first one?
Okay, you can. Yes, you can.
So for the test flakiness, there are viable methods to eliminate flakiness from your test. So rerun your test multiple times, change their execution order, and we can visualize how they succeed and fail over time. So finally, quarantine flaky tests into a separate test suite and try to fix them by looking at the potential root causes. So this is my answer.
Mm. So the next questions you have is in automation testing, what would you prefer, TDD or BDD? It's from Ranjan.
So for automation testing, I prefer BDD.
Okay, I hope they get there. And next questions we have is, it's quite a long questions. Okay, we will take another questions. Do you guys look at Cypress testboard for analyzing flaky tests? It's all again from Rosa.
Yes, of course. We do use Cypress for that.
Let me see. Okay, there is a questions from Prashant that he says that he is interested in post-script development process for automations, and once an automation script is completed, what are the typical steps a test automation engineer takes to run the script? And could you please provide some insight into the process you follow to execute and validate the automation code?
Can you post the question in chat box of Meta?
Yeah, I will. It will take some time. Okay, the first questions. We can see it from there. Okay. Okay, while you look into that questions, we'll get to our next speakers, and we will answer that questions after our next speaker's turn. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is a renowned figure in the automated software testing community, and he has dedicated an impressive 17 years of his life as a test automation trainer and consultant. And he has successfully delivered many courses on test automations to companies in the Netherlands and as well as abroad. Today, he has graciously agreed to share his experiences with us. Please give a big personal welcome to our esteemed international speaker, Bas Dijkstra. Hello, Bas.
Hello, Asmita, and hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me. And thank you, Sonia, as well, for your talk. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch all of it, but I got most of it, definitely. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, and thank you for that introduction. Let me start by sharing my screen. There we go. Can you please confirm, Asmita, that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. And you can hear me fine. So let's get started. You've graciously given me around 30 minutes, so I'll definitely try and see if I can stick to that time frame. Yes, I don't think there's a lot to say to tell about myself, really. I think that's often the least interesting part of the whole story. And by the way, Smita, you did a wonderful job of introducing me, so I won't bore you with any more details about who I am or what I did. But what I want to talk about today is, well, as you see, we have a talk title, How Well Do You Wield Your Tools? Or with the subtitle of The Importance of Craftsmanship in Test Automation. What I wanted to talk today to you about is we all do a lot of automation. Again, I've been, as Smita already graciously said, I've been in testing and automate. Oh, that's not the last time that's going to happen today. I've been in testing and automation for about 17 years now, and almost always as a consultant. And often when I talk to teams, talk to individuals, talk to companies about what they do when they talk about test automation, about the test automation strategy, which Sony talked about, or about their skills, or what they want to learn, where they want to grow, where they want to be when they grow up as individuals or as teams or as organizations. People almost always start talking about tools. And I understand that. Tools are fun. Tools are nice. Tools are, you need tools to do test automation. So Sony in a talk asked about what's your definition of test automation? What do you think about when you talk about test automation? And you cannot talk about test automation without talking about tools. That's absolutely true. I love tools. I love using tools. I love exploring new tools. Over the last year, I've even started developing some of my own tools and put that out there in the open source community. So tools are absolutely wonderful. But there's more than just tools. There's more than, for me, and Sony gave a great definition of test automation, which very much aligns with my own definition, which is using tools to perform specific testing activities more efficiently. That's my definition of test automation. But the way a lot of the big part of the community talks about automation is only about the tools. And it almost sounds like throwing tools at problems, or maybe even developing a solution or a tool and then trying to find problems for it. I think that's the wrong way around. I don't think that that's a very healthy or very sustainable way of talking about testing and talking about automation. Especially not if you want to do it well, if you want to bring long-term value with your automation to either your team, your company, or in case you're a consultant, to your clients, to the people that you work with in general, and to the product that you're building, that you help building. It takes more than just throwing a tool at a problem. It takes more than just installing a tool and automating those scripts, automating those tests. So and that's a skill. You need to learn that. And a lot of people these days, they look at the internet for their knowledge, for if they want to learn new skills, if they're looking for a solution to a specific problem. Most automation content that's out there on the web these days goes something like this. How to get started with some tool or some library. Very useful, but not enough. 10 tips, things like 10 tips of writing better page objects. Awesome. Page objects, brilliant. Everybody should use them. unless in those situations where you should not use them. And there are so many different ways to write them. But 10 tips for writing it, useful to some extent in some very specific way. How to perform. I find myself Googling this all the time, by the way, so please don't think that I am trying to be better than you, because I'm not. I do this all the time. I have a specific problem. I want it solved. I've got my tool, and I Google how to do ABC with library 1, 2, 3, and often followed by in programming language something. Java, C#. I don't understand JavaScript. So Sony, you talked about Cypress. I don't use Cypress. Cypress doesn't like me. Cypress is JavaScript. JavaScript doesn't understand me, and the feeling's mutual. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. But it's all about very specific answers to the how question. And sometimes I get the feeling, and what you get then is people copying and pasting either what Stack Overflow Google produces, or Stack Overflow produces, or well, in the last couple of months or years, what ChatGPT produces, and then sticking that in their code base and well, praying that it works, basically. I often get a feeling that it looks a bit like this. So we've got our tool and our library, and we've got a problem. We've got something that we want to test. We've got something that we want to automate. And all we have is a hammer. And I'm sure you're familiar with Maslow's hammer, with the saying that if all you have is a hammer, then everything starts to look suspiciously like a nail. Meaning that, or in other words, I've got a tool and I've got a problem. I don't care if the tool is the best solution for the problem. I'm going to use the tool to solve the problem. I don't know about you. If I hire a carpenter or someone to solve a problem for me, I don't trust the carpenter who only brings a hammer. I want them to bring nails too, and a saw, and a ruler, and a level, and what else. And I want them to ask questions first instead of just hammering away. Unfortunately, in testing and automation, I see a lot of people, well, just picking up a hammer and start hammering. And what you get often, well, maybe not with a hammer, but this is the plumbing equivalent of that, is solutions that look suspiciously like this. I definitely, again, I am definitely not better than the next person. I build a lot of stuff that basically look like this. I sometimes still build stuff that basically looks like this. Have I improved over the years? Well, definitely. Is there still room for improvement? Oh, yes, definitely. But what I have learned is the ability to sometimes just take a little bit step back and say, well, is this really am I building a solution, or am I just throwing a tool at a problem? And that's what I talk about. That's what I want to talk about today, about Craftsmanship, because I think that separates the novice from the craftsperson. The ability to take that step back and look at a problem first, and not just start throwing tools at problems. So before I dive into some of the things that I think it's good to have a look at, to consider, I wanted to briefly talk about low-code tools, because I don't have anything against them, not at all. I regularly use some low-code tools. They do have one inherent problem, though, is that they make the whole throwing tools at problems a lot easier. So what I the way I typically describe it is, yes, low-code tools make your life easier because they make it easier to do things, to start building automation solutions, and that's great. There's a lot of value in low-code tools, in using low-code tools if you do it right. The big problem is it's much easier to make a mess of it. In my experience, and I've talked about this a lot with fellow people in the testing and automation and the development space. And some of them even agree, and not all of them agree, but some of them. It's with low-code tools making a mess out of it, just succumbing to that whole, I'm just going to throw a tool at a problem. That whole, it's become so much easier with low-code tools. So people talk about low-code in the way that, oh, now everybody can write automation. You don't need development skills anymore. My argument is you probably need at least as much development skills if you want to make successful use of low-code tools and build a solution using low-code tools that scales, that is maintainable, that is reliable. You still need a whole lot of development skills, just as much as you would need when you write your automation in code. So Jeff, I think we should talk more about craftsmanship. We should talk less about tools and how can I do this with this specific tool, or my tool is better than your tool. I hate those discussions. Or what tools should I? There are no really bad tools out there anymore. There's a lot of tools. Some tools have more features than other tools. Tools have different features. I don't think there are any really bad tools out there anymore. But what I think we should talk more about is craftsmanship, about the skills that are necessary to not just use those tools, but to use them well, and to use them as a as a means to an end instead of as the end goal itself, as a means to building reliable automation that scales. So the rest of the talk is just some suggestions on how to do some things I think you should consider, some things I've seen and learned and experienced in the last too many years of my career. So first of all is people keep forgetting this, and I know that there's a part of the software testing community that's very active, very vocal about this, and I like that, and they should do it. I don't join in those discussions as often as I should, but there are definitely a lot of people that I respect that are talking about this, and they definitely should, because it saves me from doing that. But we should talk more about what good testing looks like and how tools can help support it. And I think the key word here is support, not replace. Too often still, testing is seen as something that can be completely automated, that testers and that the things that we do as testers can be completely replaced by tools. We all know it's a lie. Unfortunately, there's still also the testing that a lot of people, if all you do is execute predefined test scripts, then yes, that can and probably should be replaced by a tool. But there's so much more that we do as testers. So let's talk about what good testing looks like. Do better testing. Improve the craft of testing. And then also talk about how can we use tools to help support that, to do our work in a more efficient way. So, and instead of that whole, oh, the tools and the robots and AI and whatever is coming, it's coming for us, it's going to replace us, we're going to be out of a job. I don't think that's true, at least not anytime soon. but let's talk about what good testing actually looks like and how we can use those tools, our automation tools, our automation libraries, but also AI, big data, all those kinds of things, how we can use that to support the work that we are doing. And so instead of, and I have no idea if this movie was ever popular or even released in Nepal or wherever you are, but this is still from Office Space. This is Milton Adams. And basically he got pushed during the movie, got pushed. It's a brilliant film, by the way, brilliant movie. You should all watch it. He was pushed further and further into the corner and into the basement of his office and just given stacks of papers and then please don't talk to us, please just do your work. That's how I felt a lot during my early, at least in retrospect, during the early days of my career. I got a bunch of test scripts and all I needed to do was automate them. Does that give any results? Well, it does give results, but does it give any good results? Not really. A lot of the results that I got from that was looking like this. Why? Because we were working in isolation. We were the test automation engineers responsible for automating the test scripts, and we weren't really allowed to talk to the other people. So there wasn't a whole lot of communication. There wasn't a whole lot of collaboration. And also because we automated way after, way later, weeks, months later than after the moment that the code was being written that we were testing, testability and automatability definitely suffered. So, and yes, I needed some code in the so I try to not do a talk about automation without showing some code. Also, this is a shameless plug for the open source library that I'm building. But if you talk about who's responsible, if at some point this comes up in your talking about the strategy or your test automation implementation or strategy or your way of working, and you're like, hell, who's responsible for writing and maintaining the tests? Please don't say, oh, the testers, or oh, the automation, or oh, the developer. It's the team. Everybody should be responsible for this. It's not a separate task or anything. It's something that you do to help support your testing, your development, which means it's a whole team responsibility. Everybody should be and can in your team, in your development team, should contribute and can contribute to automation. So please make sure that that's true, that happens. Second thing, so at first is how can we most efficiently use automation to support our testing? The second thing, automation is software development. And yes, again, that's still true if you use low-code tools. You're writing software to test software. If you do test automation, you're a developer. Yay, you can now all update your LinkedIn profiles with I'm a developer. Awesome. Everybody should do that because we should recognize that test automation is software development. And we all say that, but not all of us walk the talk, so to say. So we all say, yes, software, test automation is software development. I think it's a good idea to start acting like it is. So again, and more code. Please make sure that your code, that the test code that you write, please make sure that it doesn't stay at this one. Again, this is, by the way, C# and Selenium and NUnit. But it's all very procedural. It's not really maintainable. It's not readable. Well, it's a very small test. So you can probably get the gist of what this does. It opens a web page, it logs in, and it checks that you see your main menu. Ooh, brilliant test. But the code quality, this is not readable, maintainable, reusable, stable, reliable code. This is someone that I used to work with called it procedural diarrhea. It's just statement after step. Click this, type this, find this element. If your test script gets longer, and it will get longer, there's no way your code is going to remain maintainable and readable and reliable and stable, reusable, if you write your code like this. To improve that code, and again, all those properties, the reusability, the maintainability, the readability, and so on, guess what? You need to apply good software development practices, good object-oriented programming practices. So that's the whole test automation is software development part, which means you need software development skills. So learn about the testing frameworks that you use. So for example, I used NUnit in this example. If you use Java, it's JUnit or TestNG that you're using probably, but it doesn't really matter which one you use. All those testing frameworks, they have features. They have lots of brilliant features that you can use to improve the quality and the stability of your tests. In case of, especially in the case of UI tests, learn about proper weighting and synchronization techniques. Selenium is famous for what people call writing flaky tests. Selenium isn't flaky. The tests that you write with Selenium are flaky. It's perfectly possible to write super stable, rock stable tests with Selenium. It's just that compared to other libraries like Cypress or Playwright, you need to do a little bit more of the work yourself. I actually like that because it gives me more freedom, more flexibility to build that weighting and synchronization. Other people say, well, no, I want Playwright to take care of that, or I want Cypress or WebDriver or whatever to take care of that for me. That's fine too, absolutely fine. But you need to learn about either how to do this yourself or how the library or tool that you're using does this for you, which is additional skill, work, experience that you need. Probably the most important one, at least for me, applying object-oriented programming principles. People talk about page objects, for example. That's just encapsulation in action. If you use things like base classes or whatever, that's inheritance. If you have multiple different ways of calling methods or creating instances of a class, that's polymorphism. If you use interfaces or abstracted, that's abstraction. Those are the four fundamental principles of object-oriented programming. And they're super useful if you want to write tests. And you should want to write tests that are readable, maintainable, reusable, or whatever, as I said. And yes, that's part of the whole test automation is software development thing. You should learn more, and you should learn not just about the tool that you use, but also how to use it well, how to use that tool. Again, I think about the carpenter with their hammer. I don't just want a carpenter that knows how to use a hammer. I want a carpenter that knows how to use a hammer well, and also how to use that hammer together with a nail, with their nails and a saw and a level and a ruler to create the cupboard that I want, for example. And the same thing applies to tools and automation. And just another example of those tools, linting and static code analysis tools. If you want your code, your test code to be high quality code, to be readable, to be maintainable, to be well structured, use tools like this to analyze the quality of your test code too. Your developers are probably, hopefully, doing this for your application, for your production code. So please do this for your test code too. And finally, I wanted to briefly talk about not automating everything. Because that's, to me, that's part of the whole craftsmanship thing too. Not just automating something because you can, but only automating something because you should. So now I'm going to skip this one. This doesn't make sense in retrospect. The point here is for this slide is people talk about code coverage. So no, I'm going to quickly go. So people talk about code coverage. So I've got a class here that represents a bank account with the type and a balance, and I've got a test. If I run this test, all tests pass, and I've got 100% code coverage. And people talk about either code coverage or state branch, any type of coverage as some kind of the holy grail. We want to cover everything. The problem is coverage doesn't really tell you all that much. It tells you it tells you a lot about the quantity of tests that you're doing, but it doesn't tell you anything about the quality of that test. So, for example, this test, which creates a new savings account, deposits something into it, adds interest, and then checks the balance. It tests this, but let's say, for example, your developer comes in and they change something accidentally, which means that you can now not just add interest to savings accounts, but to any account, any type of account. And so they make a mistake, or they, as they like to call it, they refactor the code, and they accidentally create it. The problem is, my tests will still pass. I still have 100% code coverage, and I have no idea that this bug was introduced. This is what you get. Of course, this is a very simplistic example, but this is what you get when you focus on quantity of the testing that you do over the quality of the testing and the automation that you do. And so please use things like coverage as a way to talk about the things that you haven't covered, but not as a quality target in and of itself. Because, well, just do more testing and more automation is not equal to better testing. To do better testing, you need to be more like that craftsman, really. So my proposal here is instead of writing as many tests as we can, writing as few as we can get away with. And then make sure that those tests that we do right, that we feel we absolutely need, to make sure that those are really, really good. And good is, again, a very, well, it's a very broad term, but I mean stable, reliable. It produces the right information. It's efficient, so it's a very small test. It's readable. It's repeatable, reusable, all those ability things. But this takes skill. This takes experience. It takes working together with the other people in your team to make it, to find out, to have them review it, to collaborate it, to together to find ways to improve that, improve your tests, improve your test automation, improve that strategy. Because your tests are guards or safety nets or change detectors, but you need someone to guard those guards. Yeah, you need craftspeople to make sure that those tests are actually of the highest possible quality. You need someone to test your tests. You need someone to guard those guards. Wrapping up, how to get there? How do we get there? What can we do today to get there, to get to where we want? First of all, small steps. I now realize this is probably not the best picture, because to that very small kid, this probably looks like very big steps. But if you would be there as an adult, as an experienced person, you'd probably see, well, these steps are not that big. They're actually pretty small. But it's the whole point that I'm trying to make is take small steps. You don't need to be, you probably won't get it right or perfect the first time, probably also not the second time or second day. But if you keep thinking about what can we do today, right now, to take a little step in the right direction, that's where you want to go. And so take small steps. Don't overthink those steps too much. Just try something and see if it works. If it doesn't work, just do git reset. Because, well, you've all put your test code in version control, hopefully, right? So just do git reset and learn from that. Take small steps, and you'll see over time, all those little small steps will add up, and you will get better. Your solutions will get better and better and better. And your automation and your tests will get better and better. And sometimes that means removing stuff. I've come to the point where the best day is a day where I only deleted code. I love those days. And again, work together. Don't do this in isolation. Don't be that test automation engineer somewhere on an island, completely isolated from the rest of the team and the rest of the company. Talk to your fellow testers, to developers, to your end users, to, well, whomever is involved in creating, evaluating, using the product, because things will get better and they will help you create better automation solutions. Look for coaches, mentors, either within your company, maybe from a different team or a different department, or find someone from outside of the company who can help you, who has done the things that you're looking to do before, and who can help you. Please don't look for someone who's telling you to do it. I want you to find someone who can help you do this, help you get where you want to be. Yep, I think, well, I've taken up a little more time than I expected, but that's it for me. Amrita, are there any questions, comments, anything people would like me to give my view on? Any?
Thank you so much, Bas. It was an interesting topic. And as a QA engineer myself, I also hope that we can create a culture of discussing, the fundamentals before undertaking the job of test automations. So that was a very interesting topic. And I hope everyone enjoyed the talk. Now, I'd like to request the audience if there are any questions. You can drop in the, okay, from Rosans, he has asked that, do you mean by low code tools, do you mean the record and play tools? He has asked.
Those typically, well, yes and no, which is a super unhelpful answer. But some, they can be. So with low code tools, I typically refer to the tools that have a graphical user interface of their own, where you can basically, and this is an overstep, but basically drag and drop and your test together without writing code. So record and playback sometimes produces that, but I've also seen record and playback tools that actually produce code. But I mean those tools that have a graphical user interface of their own, where you can just and that provide a lot of building blocks that you can use that you can string together. So for me, tools like Postman, for example, it's a great example of what I call a low-code tool, because you don't have to do all the coding yourself.
Okay. I hope we got the answers. Okay, we will wait for a few questions. Looks like there are no any questions.
Oh, that's absolutely fine.
We got a questions from Rosal. How do you determine when to stop writing automation test? From Rosal.
When to stop writing them? Ooh, so there's a lot of different. So if we stop developing our product, so and yes, again, that's not the most. So let me elaborate for that on that a little bit. As long as the product that you're developing, maintaining, selling, whatever, producing, as long as that evolves, your tests will evolve alongside that product. So that's on the largest words, English things, on the largest scale, so to say. On smaller, it's probably when you run out of time, or when writing those automated tests stops being the most important thing to do. There's lots of different things that can stop when to stop testing, when to stop writing automation. But in general, if you have a reliable, I don't think you ever stop writing tests, but what I want to warn people for, what people to do less of, is just writing tests for the sake of writing tests, to look busy, or to say, well, we can increase our coverage a little bit here. So increasing coverage is fine as long as it's with useful and meaningful tests. So, and if not, you should probably not write that test.
Yeah. Okay. Another questions we have from Anuj Subedi. How do I show the effectiveness of test automation on the company at work?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's very, 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 very difficult. Because that's very, very closely related to the quality of the product and the quality. So show the effectiveness of tests. So again, for me, tests are change detectors, and an effective test for me is a test that's very effective in detecting changes. There are tools that can help you do that. There are practices that can help you do that. So things like just reviewing your tests tells me a lot. Having your test reviewed by someone else in your team, a fellow automation engineer, that probably will filter out a lot of, oh, I didn't think about that. Just quickly changing something, either in your edit, the configuration of your system, or maybe even in the code, and seeing, oh, my test picked up on that change. That tells me something about what I call the defect detection power, or just the effectiveness of your automated tests. Again, the ability to identify change. And there are tools, in particular mutation testing tools, that can help you automate that process of testing your tests. So that gives me some information about the effectiveness in some dimension, but there's lots of other dimensions to think about as well. And that's just, for example, the information that your test produces, is that useful? Because that's a dimension of effectiveness as well. So it's a very good question. It's a really, again, a really good question. That's very, very hard to answer. That probably would take another 30-minute talk, and unfortunately we don't have the time for that today. But I hope that this short answer gave you some pointers and ideas at least.
Okay, another questions from Ranjan. Which path would you suggest to junior QA to become a great automation tester?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Which path would you suggest to junior QA to become a great automation tester?
Oh, which path? It depends. No, it's just which path? I don't think don't take mine. It took me way too long to learn the things I know now. It took me 17 years. But learn from, the only thing I can recommend is practice a lot and learn from others. So practice a lot means look up examples, tutorials, and don't just stick to tool or library specific ones. Again, being a good automation engineer takes more than just knowing a tool or two very well. So look a little bit broader than that, and work together with more experienced people, because they've made those mistakes in the past, and if they are good mentors, and there's plenty of good mentors out there, they will help you learn and grow, and there's no better way. So I'm doing this with a client of mine, not right now, but tomorrow. So one day a week. So we build stuff together, and they are new to it. I've done it before, so I show them how, I ask them questions. So it's just working together with more experienced people, and it's amazing how quickly they learn new things. So if you can find a way to do that, that's part. And so yes, read that blog post and watch that video, but please also practice a lot.
It's a long-term for hard work and long.
It is. Hopefully it doesn't take you 17 years, but yeah. No, it's not a 2 or 3 week or 3 month journey. No, absolutely not.
Okay, Nivesh asked, if we intend to do low-code automations, do we really need QA to automate? Developer can tag along in a sprint for one day to automate. We as a QA can provide test scenarios to dev to automate.
Yes and no. Yes, in that, again, working together is a great way. In all honesty, I haven't worked with a whole lot of developers who were very keen to use these low-code tools. They typically say, oh, I can do that way more efficiently in code. Yeah, well, it's not like one is better than the other, and I don't even want to get into that low-code discussion. But so I like the idea of working together. I don't like the idea of one person creating the scripts and then basically throwing them over the wall for someone else to automate. And it doesn't really matter in who creates it and which direction you throw it in, because things are going to get lost in translation at some point. But as the person who writes the script, you know what you mean when you write it down, but that's not a guarantee that the other person will interpret it in the same way. That's what I've seen gone wrong too often early in my career, when I was the people who received the scripts written by someone else. But work together on it. Just pair up and share, not share a chair, but a keyboard and a monitor. And you can do that virtually as well. You can have your own chair in your own office, but work together and communicate. It's a much more efficient way of sharing knowledge and learning.
Yeah, it's also based on the individual. If the developer happens to be your close friend, you can tag along. Right?
Yes, and absolutely. And developers are people too.
Yeah.
They really are. You can ask them questions and they'll probably give you an answer. And if you don't understand that answer, you can ask a question again in return and learn from each other. So
yeah,
absolutely.
So Prasant asked, what do you think about robot framework test automation framework?
Oh, it's brilliant. um, again, I don't think there are any really bad tools out there, but I love robot framework, and I think more people should use it. Why? Because so I consider robot framework to some extent, for me, it's a low code tool, because you don't write Python or Java, C# or JavaScript or whatever kind of code. You still write code, it's just in a much more human readable, human friendly syntax. And it abstracts away, you get a lot of stuff for free. It's extensible, so if you need something done that robot framework does not do, you can just write a bit of Python code and suddenly robot framework does the thing you want it to do, and it generates good reports. So I like it, I really like it, and I think more people should use it. Is it the tool that you should use everywhere? No, of course not, but I really like it.
Okay, looks like we have few more questions, Bas. Hope you are okay with it.
Yes, I've got some 10 minutes, so
Okay, we will ask few questions. When to start the automation for a project? Should we wait until the project matures?
no.
Okay.
No, very short answer, no. So when we would start the automation is because then you'll probably be too late. So I've read that, and I've even given that argument myself in the past as well. If we want to have stable automation, we should wait until the project matures, and especially if that graphical user interface becomes a little bit more stable. And I get that, but the problem is then people will have moved on to other things, and so your developers are already 3, 4, 5 sprints ahead of you, and then you come say, oh, but I want to automate this stuff now, and they'll probably be working on that. And again, they will be much less likely to have those conversations with you and to work together with you because they're busy doing other stuff. No, I think the best way, the best moment to start writing tests is as close to writing the code as possible in time, because that also enables you to write your tests as close to the code as possible in terms of the scope. So it's almost like this rule. Maybe it's just a rule of thumb, or it's like a more general rule, but the longer you wait between writing your application code and writing your tests, the more likely it is that you get these huge, very inefficient tests that rely on the graphical user interface too much, because it's just less likely that you can have that conversations with your teammates, with your developers about what are we going to test? What are you building? How can we test that? Should we test that? How should we test that? And what would be the most efficient way to test that? So the sooner you start with that, the higher the likeliness that the tests that you write are closely tied to the code, which almost always makes them much more efficient. Plus, you get much quicker feedback about A, the quality of your product, and B, the quality of your tests. So please don't wait.
So another questions, I think it's similar to that questions. The answer will be similar. Do we need automation for short-term projects?
It depends. If it's with short-term projects, you mean you're building a product, and because you can create a product that lasts that's going to be used for a very long time in a very, very short time frame. I just no that's but it depends, and it all depends on what's the investment, how much time is it going to take me to write tests and to create that automation, and what do I get in return for that investment. And it's just that the shorter your project, and I sort of I'm conflating that with just a product that you're just going to be using for a very short time, the likeliness that you'll get a lot of value out of automated tests is going to be smaller. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it's definitely something to take into account. So how much time do I need? And therefore, how much money is it going to cost us to write those tests and to run those tests, to maintain those tests? And what's it going to bring us?
Okay. So I guess 10 minutes has passed by, or we are left with some minutes. Do you want another questions or that?
Yes, let's do one more.
One more, okay. It's from Roshan. How do you maintain CI process, and how do you integrate all the test automation like UI integration and unit test with the CI process?
That too, that's a good question. Again, I think that's the responsibility of the team. But as an automation engineer, or as a tester, or just as I don't really care about what your LinkedIn profile says you do. If you're involved in writing and maintaining or running automation, that's part of the process. So first of all, yes, you should do something like CI to make sure that your tests are actually run when they're supposed to be run. So either on a nightly build, or maybe they're triggered every time you commit something to a specific branch in your repository or whatever. As the creator of those tests, you are responsible for making sure that those tests are run. And that's true for unit tests and integration tests and end-to-end tests and performance tests and security, every type of test, really. That doesn't mean that you are the person who actually needs to implement that, because that's yet another skill. But to give you an example of how important I think it is again, I said I'm working with two, let's call them junior automation engineers. They're not that junior anymore, at least not in terms of age, at a company, at a client of mine. And they wanted to grow and learn more about automation. And one of the first things we actually did is, after we set up our development environment and wrote our first test, I said, the first thing that we are going to do is build a pipeline and make sure that those tests are run each and every time. And with each and every time, I mean every night in this case. And also, every time we commit something, we make a change to that code base, I want those tests to be run. Because I think that that's why you have those tests. You want to make sure that you don't accidentally introduce some changes that you don't want to introduce. And your tests are a very important part of that process. So you should make sure that they run. And the best way to make sure that they run is to automate that process. And so that's one of the first things that we did. And the good thing about that is, once you've got that in place, adding more tests is the easiest thing there is. It's setting up the environment, and your CIs is part of that. That's why that's the hardest thing, and that's why I think it's important to do that as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Bas, for your wonderful answers and presentation as well. Sony, we have few questions for you as well that we
Sure.
couldn't answer before. Um, because now for you, the first question is, what's your approach to select test for automations and prioritizing them?
So if we have to talk about approaches, so there are different approaches for it, and my way of doing it is we have to properly prepare the post first, and after that uh, we have to be familiar with the tools as well, and after that, but talking about the test automation, happy part testing, I would choose first happy part testing, then for the functional testing. So, did you get my answer?
Okay, so someone asks, why aren't you using GitHub Actions for CI/CD?
So before I give an example for one of the specific client is for is like for project requirement, but we can use different tools like Jenkins, GitHub as well, and GitLab. So it is only just for the specific project requirement. That is why we use TeamCity for that project. We also use Jenkins and CICD as well.
I hope that answers your questions, Rosal. Um, Prasant, another questions from Prasant. Once an automation script is completed, what are the typical steps of test automation engineer takes to run the script?
So I mentioned before the basic if step that we followed. So before running our test script, we have to prepare our test script, and the first thing we have to do is to prepare our test script. Then we have to set up our environment. Is the setup is right or wrong? Is it set up correctly or not? Then we have to set up our data. Then we have to execute our test. Then repeatedly analyze our uh, test script, and then we report bug if we found any while executing it. Then last step will be maintenance. That is
Okay, so that's pretty much some answer for these questions. So we are at the end of the webinar. So this will be the end of our webinar. We hope you find the session as insightful and enriching as we did. And we also hope to be able to help you further in your test automation journey. So at last, our website has a comprehensive collections of resources on test automation in the form of articles, blogs, and tutorials. You can go to our websites. So that will be and we will be conducting such webinars a lot more in future. So please stay in touch with us through LinkedIn. Once again, thank you for being a part of our webinar, and we look forward to staying connected and continuing to learn and grow together. Thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for your
Thank you so
valuable-
much, Asmita, for having me. And again, once again, thank you for everybody who joined the session, for taking the time out of your day, and for most of you, probably out of the already pretty late evening to join this session. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.